Good evening and welcome to the UM 2021 Student Election Debate. My name is Michael Keith. I'm with the Maastricht Diplomat and the UNSA, and tonight we will be having a roundtable conversation with 7 of the 8 candidates on the University Council lists. Last year, when looking at the voting numbers, there were approximately 1/5 of the total amount of students who voted. We at the UNSA found this to be a bit lacking. And so, in this year, we are doing something to change that. Tonight will be less of an exhaustive evening, but more towards dipping of the toes into the political scene in Maastricht. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the candidates.
I want to promote technological freedom and sanity, and in general I want to be a critical, independent voice in the council.
Novum is the progressive student party in Maastricht. Vote against proctorio and let's get more student housing in Maastricht.
Let's tackle student well-being issues such as housing, student financing or mental health. Let's rebuild our community together.
I have a dream that this year voters will have a long-run perspective, because this is the only way to expand our campus and to increase the number of study places available.
Whether it comes to excellent quality of education, student well-being as a priority instead of a detail, or an ambitious sustainability strategy, DOPE knows how to get things done.
Our love for learning is what connects us. Let's keep fighting for high quality education, as well as look out for each other by emphasizing student well-being.
Together, we can make Maastricht University more sustainable. We can make it focused more on student well-being, and we can ensure that it delivers the highest quality of education possible.
Vote the CAN Party for faculty and central level sustainability plans. Let's implement diversity and inclusivity trainings. We get things done together.
They will be discussing 3 topics within the University of Maastricht. The first topic will be political culture and representation. The second will be the UM curriculum. And the third will be the mental health and well-being of the students. The format for the evening: each candidate has 3 minutes to discuss their views on each topic. And at the end of the evening, we will have a short Q&A session before a final 60 seconds where each candidate is able to represent their party's platform.
Maastricht has a very diverse and international student population, and students want to make their voice heard, but right now there isn't much of a political culture among the community. Last year, only 1/3 of the student population voted in the university elections. How do you plan to increase engagement in student politics, and how do you plan to represent us?
So, our first candidate of the evening will be Charles de Groot, representing Novum. Charles, you have represented yourself as the self-styled progressive party of Novum. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And what do you think of the UM political scene this year?
So, it's actually a very interesting question, and thank you also for hosting this debate. The question about why UM is lacking in voter turnout, but not only that, why do most people not know about what's happening in the councils, or even what councils are? So councils, whether they be the faculty council or the university council, is basically the legislative branch of the university. And so what can we actually do to improve them? Well, we are these elections that are going to happen on May the 17th, and there all students do have a right to vote. And so that's why it's important to vote. And we as Novum are the progressive party because we want more transparency of what is happening in the councils, but not only what is happening in the councils, but also what are student parties voting for, so that there's accountability in the councils. And we want that to happen through UM units. And not only that, so there's the side of what's happening in the councils, but also what's happening outside of the councils. And that's where Novum really tries push forward. So, for example, on the issue of housing, Novum has contacted D66 and has a direct link with the municipality of Alderman to create more student housing in the facilities of Brunswick. But not only that, Novum is also there for students, whether that be joining the rector's meeting to create a better mental well-being in the university or other issues. So Novum is the progressive party because we also have a very progressive platform, such as, for example, we want to have a free period products in all UM facilities, but we also think that the mental health issue should be included, so we want to have a 24/7 student psychological call center, such as is done in the University of Tilburg. For us, Novum is really the progressive party, and we hope that you will vote for change and that you will be voting for Novum.
Cool, thank you, Charles. Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about this progressive part of your party. Novum it's been around for quite a while, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's been around, if I'm not mistaken, 18 years. But then again, 18 years ago, I was not even a toddler, so I don't think that change is always welcome.
Okay, but what makes Novum so much more progressive than other parties?
I think that if you look at the platform, so for example, we are running on a very progressive platform. So for example, we want to have a complaints office for whether that be sexual harassment or any other complaints that student may lodge, or our issue of housing, how we are one of the parties that is really taking this issue of housing into the university's hand. This is where you see that the progressive part of Novum, the part for fighting for ordinary students, even if they do not know what the councils are, well, that is the part for where you see that Novum is the progressive party in our university.
Cool, thank you, Charles. So next, Lotte Meerhoff from DOPE. We've spoken how Novum has actually been around for 18 years, but you represent perhaps the oldest party in Maastricht, is that correct?
Yes, we have been around for 20 years, for over 20 years, I guess. So thank you for the invitation. Super nice to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, of course. So what can you tell us about DOPE and how they fit into the political scene here in Maastricht? Because you not only involved Maastricht, but you also have connections to the national student political scene. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, DOPE is the largest and most influential student party, we would say. We are active at all faculty councils, so therefore we kind of represent students from a diversity of disciplines, nationalities, interests. And well, we have been representing students for over 20 years, so we are pretty experienced with getting things done. And furthermore, as you said, DOPE is a member of the ISO, which is the National Student Union. And by being a member of the ISO, we are directly informed about what happens, for example, on a level of national policy making. And we indirectly have a say in national politics. So I think that really sets us apart.
Okay, so perhaps on a more down feet attached to the ground perspective, when you say that DOPE is connected both nationally and locally, what does that actually mean with regards to students in Maastricht? What does that national perspective bring to our little city?
Well, let me take an example. Okay, so we all have built up like really high debts due to the student loan system in the Netherlands. And one thing that is really important for us is that all the money that was saved by the student loan system is that money will be invested into the education, so in the quality of our education. And there are quality agreements, that is national legislation to arrange that. And what we really want to achieve is to know at what point we are in that national legislative process, and to kind of invest all the money in the quality of our small scale education, in student well-being, in all those things.
And how successful do you find it working on the local level with the other parties in Maastricht, considering that the local political scene is actually currently it's quite dynamic and it's changing quite a bit. It's becoming it's more international, and DOPE traditionally has a bit of a Dutch reputation?
Well, I wouldn't say we're particularly only a Dutch party. I think it would be kind of a narrow view to say that we're only representing Dutch students or that the party is only representing international students. I think it's really important to say that we're representing all students on a number of points. So, for example, the things that really matter to us is, first of all, the excellent quality of education, but also student well-being as a priority instead of a detail. And we really want to be a university that is part to the solution to climate change instead of part of the problem. We want more quality study spaces. And well, maybe the most important point in these times is that we want on-campus education as soon as possible, together with always recorded lectures. And I think the collaboration between other parties and us is really good. So that is something we really want to continue.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Lotte. I think you've given us a good overview of what DOPE might entail. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of an audio problem. So I'm going to actually go back to Charles de Groot from Novum. Charles?
Yes, what do I need to say?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, no, there was a little bit of an audio problem here in the studio. But let's cover Novum again. So obviously you have styled Novum as the progressive party. It's been around for 18 years. Tell us a little bit more how Novum fits into the UN political scene.
Okay, so I mean, Novum is a international and a Dutch party at the same time. We are an inclusive party which really wants to fight for all students, ordinary students who maybe do not know what's happening in the councils and who also think that the councils may not be working or working for their interests. So that's how you see that Novum is the progressive party. Not only are we progressive in our thinking of how student politics should be developed, but also with our specific platform and our manifesto. So, for example, Novum wants to have a free student mental health call center, which you can call 24/7. But not only that, Novum also wants to have free period products in all young facilities. And you do see that Novum is the progressive party, and that other parties such as Volt Students Maastricht are uniting behind Novum because we are the progressive change that we can have in the UN.
Yeah, so you actually do talk about quite a few progressive policies here. I think that having student health products in the faculties is probably going to be quite a welcome introduction into the faculties. But you also talk about transparency. How do you and Novum plan to bring transparency from the councils to the students themselves?
So in our opinion, this should be done through the UM news, and not only what the councils decide on, but what student parties vote for, so that there is accountability, and that if you do not like a decision being made by the university council or the faculty council, you can vote these people out in the next election. That's change, and that's progressivism.
Oh, okay, so that's quite some strong plans here from Novum. I look forward to what you're going to be bringing to the table in the next few years. But our next candidate is going to be an independent. Hayden Bunn, you have been in Maastricht for quite a few years. And it seems this year you're running as an independent because you feel that the parties of Maastricht are not actually delivering, perhaps, on all of these expansive platforms that they promise us.
Yes, it is. Yes, hello. Yeah, my name is Hayden. I wouldn't say I've been in Maastricht for a while. This is only 2.5 years that I've been here. But yes, I am finishing up my bachelor's, and I intend to have my master's here next year. And yes, throughout my time here in Maastricht, I have been very involved within the political scene here. I was on the law faculty last academic year, and currently I serve as the chair of the Maastricht Student Union, which is what serves as the lobbying body for student interests both within the municipality and within UM. And I believe that one of the things that differentiates me from other candidates is the fact that I'm running as an independent, because I believe that representatives should be attached not to party interest, but to individual interest. And to what you said, I do believe that every election year, we see all the parties come out, and that's almost the only time that the average student actually interacts with student political party. They kind of disappear after the election. And I believe that we need representation that is 100% always represented, always available. And I also believe that we need representation that gets stuff done. If you were to go back and watch the debate from last cycle, you will hear most parties talking about exactly the same points that we're going to talk about today. And I believe that we need to actually get stuff done and stop focusing on winning seats and winning elections, as I believe political parties tend to do. We need to start focusing on actually representing student interest and getting stuff done. And I believe my record to the stuff that I've been involved in, whether that be on the Law Faculty Council or whether that be as the chairman of the student union, I believe that that record of getting stuff done will be effectively brought to the University Council should I be lucky enough to get a seat.
Okay, so you've got quite a bit of experience then, I suppose, perhaps for your 2.5 years in Maastricht with Maastricht Student Union, and you believe that you can bring something different to the table as an independent, which brings me to another independent that we have, Giulio Azzori. So Giulio Azzori, remind you, is the president of Skyscrapers in Maastricht, and one of our candidates with probably the most expansive and a bit ambitious political plans for the year. Giulio, where do you see yourself fitting into the UN political scene?
Yep, good evening. First, I thank you for hosting this debate and for having invited me in this debate. So I will start by saying that I agree with you about what you said at the start. Like, actually, last year, students weren't very engaged in the elections. And I think that this is because they maybe thought that the members of the council cannot make a real change. But that's not the truth, because University Council give advice, is involved in assessment and monitoring, and can submit proposals for new initiatives. So I'm referring to all the people who is listening from home. Like, take just 1-2 minutes to make your voice heard. Show your vision. And coming back to the question that you originally made me, so I would say that I see me as someone who is providing a particular standpoint, someone who is lobbying for a particular group of interests. And I think that this group of interest is particularly big. So I see myself as someone who can really make a change.
Cool, thank you, Julie. And how exactly are you working to get yourself known within the Maastricht scene and actually get in touch with the students of Maastricht University? We see that a lot of the parties have an expansive social media network, that there's a lot of interactions between them and the student body, but yourself as a first year and an independent, perhaps your methods are not quite the same as theirs?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. Actually, I haven't based my campaign on social media because I wanted to focus on the ideas. I wanted to focus on the projects that I want to deliver to the University. And for sure, if next year my party will grow, maybe I could have some other energy, some other people to also focus on the social media aspect of the campaign. But as this is a young party run by an independent, I prefer to focus on the project, because I think that if people see that you have the good projects and actually these projects are needed, they will vote you even if you don't have a particularly widespread campaign through social media.
And what projects do you have in mind that you would like to see implemented in Maastricht?
As I made clear even in other occasions, my main projects are two: to lobby for building of a new library in order to offer more study places, and to lobby for the construction of another guest house in order to decrease the monthly rent by increasing the supply of rooms.
Okay, that's quite ambitious. Certainly for a first year who's coming in as an independent. We have another first year independent, Peter from Mill. Peter, what would you say is your key policy that you bring into UM this year as an independent?
Well, really the reason I guess I'm running is because I couldn't find in the existing parties what I want. So I've kind of branded myself as the technology candidate. Like that is also deliberate. I care mostly about technology issues such as digital privacy and improving the computer systems of the UM. So yeah, that is kind of my specialty. I am here to be the computer nerd in the council, to push back against stupid ideas that the university has that don't work when you actually understand them technologically. Yeah, that is really the reason I'm running. And yeah, I'm not sure there are many people who care as much about that as me. So I'll see if I make it. Yeah. But yeah, what I do think is that many students are quite concerned about climate change, and yeah, that is one thing that's like really because students are young people and we're gonna be left with the shit if things don't change, basically. And also diversity. I mean, it's also obvious that young people are generally more, well, socially liberal, I guess. So it's obvious that stuff like racism, transphobia, that's not popular among students. So that's, I think that's also what you really see in the party. The party, how do we call it? The party programs is basically every party has, we're gonna make the UM more sustainable and we're gonna make the university more diverse. And yeah, I also think those are good, but basically I have an additional aspect, which is the technology aspect.
Okay, so just a quick piece on that technology. What actually would you pinpoint as the technological weakness of the university?
The technological weakness? Well, I mean, we had a cyber attack last year, so it seems pretty obvious that there are some things that could maybe be improved. Really, what I think I will spend a lot of time also talking to IT departments, actually, like the IT departments of the UM, and trying to get things changed not only through the council, but also by understanding how exactly things are going at the UM, what the vision of the IT department is, and yeah, have a conversation with them.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Our next candidate is perhaps representative of sustainability and diversity and inclusivity in Maastricht. Freddie from CAN, the Climate Action Network, the Green Party of Maastricht. What would you say to some of the previous candidates about where CAN actually fits in Maastricht?
I think that CAN really fits in because we are rooted into a larger community. We are part of the Climate Action Network, and we also bring the initiatives of the Climate Action Network into the councils, such as Fossil Free's campaign on making a statement in favor of divestment. But also as the Can Party, we have people working on our initiatives and projects who are not in the council. So even by that, we're broadening the bubble a little bit. And if you look on our social media, you can also see a little bit on what we have been doing in the past year, because we've really tried to make this communication effort to show you a bit more what is going on. But I think this should also be done a little bit more from the side of the university. So there I would definitely agree with Charles.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've spoken to me before about how the university it's a bit of a bubble and it's sort of the same old, and Can is looking for motivation to bring a fresh face and a fresh energy to Maastricht. Could you perhaps talk about some of the things that Can has achieved in the past year?
Yes, we've worked largely on sustainability. So we, for example, in November, December, published a report on the governance of sustainability at which has shown problems in accountability, the capacity, and also in general in the planning, because there's no sustainability plan. We have then followed that up with concrete suggestions through the climate letter that has gotten a lot of support in the community. And now we are seeing results from that, because in the baseline forecast, which is an official document from on what they want to do in the next year, they said they want to make this plan. So we're ready to look at how they're planning this and be there with our critical perspective and the help of experts.
Okay, so really a champion for sustainability and the environment. I'd like to move on now to our last candidate for this section, Moritz Takash from USM, the United Students of Maastricht. Now, Moritz, you are the founder and currently vice president of USM, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So currently I am the vice president of USM. USM, the United Students of Maastricht, actually was founded in 2019. And we came to the councils to actually bring some international representation to make the voice heard of international students in the councils. Because before that, a lot of, most of the student representatives were not aware of the issues that international students face in Maastricht. And actually, that is actually the main goal that we had back then. And from there, we expanded to a student platform with great initiatives launching in the next couple of months, but also in the last years, we launched a few great campaigns in regards to study financing, where we, for example, are talking on a national level together with Can, with LSVB or ISO, which are the big national student communities, to really much ease the access for international students for study financing, especially in Corona times. And also what we're standing for is inclusivity and diversity. So basically our candidates are coming from diverse backgrounds, diverse study tracks, and we really much try to collaborate with other associations to engage people, to run campaigns on inclusivity and diversity. And that is why we're here. We want to enhance community building. We want to improve our projects. Also, we are pre-launching a housing project coming soon, very exciting, a student platform for students to ease kind of the problem of affordable housing in Maastricht. But also we have other great initiatives with the local community of Maastricht, such as Blueprint, which is a sustainable charity selling secondhand books and donating and partnering with, for example, Surf the City Maastricht, really giving back something also to the Dutch community that is hosting all these international students here. So yeah, that's USM in a short snapshot.
Okay, thank you, Moritz. I'd like to hop on one of the things you said there, considering that you represent the international students of Maastricht. But you said you're trying to build a bridge between locals and internationals. How are you doing this?
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to build a bridge not only to the locals, but also together with we have in the party a lot of Dutch students that help us in issues that some students face regarding national requirements when they settle into Maastricht. You know, we have some issues with visa, and obviously often these platforms are also just in Dutch, so they help out there as well. And yeah, how do we build the bridge? So basically, mostly through the campaigns we do, the 56-hour rule campaign that uses really much study financing for international students, but also interacts with the national body of students. And then with the local community, we're focusing on, for example, we launched, Kim, our president, launched in the SPE Council a refugee project so that refugees are interacting in Maastricht with the SPE and basically building an ecosystem where we can benefit from each other.
Okay, so that's quite expansive. That's USM seems to be a very energetic party, and they seem to be bringing quite a bit to the table. I'd like to take this opportunity to move on to our second topic of the evening, perhaps something that is most important to students this year. It is going to be the curriculum.
We students are going to shape tomorrow's world. That's why we should be able to decide what we want to learn today. I want a curriculum that reflects my beliefs, but I don't know how to voice my needs. So what can you offer? Where do you stand on the matter?
So we have a lot of parties here, a lot of representatives, and students are always concerned about what is being done for the curriculum. How is the curriculum staying up to date to provide them with real world skills once we've graduated? Hayden, our independent, I'd like to move across to you. You have a few ideas as to how you would like to modernize our curriculum.
Yes, I do. I believe that there's one of the things that we need to bring to the curriculum is more flexibility. Specifically, what I mean is we need to have more opportunities for students to be able to take cross-faculty minors and cross-faculty courses. Because most of us, when we start our bachelor's program, we are usually 18, 19, 20. And it's not reasonable for us to expect that we fully understand what our interest academically is and where we see ourselves in 10, 20 years when it comes to the career market. And by allowing more flexibility in the course, we will be allowed to better understand what our interests are and better channel our interest to what our future, we believe our future will be. I also want to address something that was actually brought up in the Instagram comments, on the YouTube comments by Isabella about disabilities. And I think that also relates to the issue of the UM curriculum. The UM curriculum does need to be more accepting of people who do have disabilities, and the Disability Office can do a lot more with that. I want to thank you, Isabella, for that question, but also I want to move on to also talk about exams too, because I think that's one way we can really modernize how UM operates. I believe that we need to move away from the MEC-based exams or the 3-hour-long exams, because those don't actually teach us skills that are going to be able to help us later in life. What those do is those teach us how to be good test takers, but there's not going to have a job where they're going to make you, where you're going to be paid to take tests. That's not an employment opportunity. So we should be testing people based on skills that will actually help them later in the job market.
So would you have an example of what you would rather see, perhaps, than a 3-hour-long test?
Yes. When I was on the Law Faculty Council, one of the projects that was discussed was the remade Dutch Bachelor program. And this program, while I did have some objections to it, moved more into the approach of a portfolio type thing, where you're graded on your overall work you do, not graded solely on an exam. So you'd be graded on stuff like the papers you do, the presentations you give. And all of that will be looked at together to give you a final grade. I believe that is much more of that teaches skills that you're actually going to be able to use later in life. It teaches skills like writing, like presenting, which is much more important than teaching you how to take a 3-hour exam.
I think you might be onto something there, Hayden. But you also spoke a little bit about cross-faculty minors, which I guess then means that you would like to see interdisciplinary more interdisciplinary skills introduced into the curriculum.
Yes, I believe that is very important, is that we allow the opportunity for students who want to take courses in other programs, whether that be in the full part of a minor or just taking one period where they go and take courses at SPE if they normally take courses at law or something like that. I believe this will really allow for more well-rounded students, but also for students to better explore their interest.
Cool, thank you, Hayden. There's actually somebody else in the room who has similar beliefs regarding double degrees or multi-faculty curriculums, and that is Moritz. Moritz, what is USM's vision for the UM curriculum?
Yeah, thank you again. So basically, USM is, 2 years ago, we actually started to integrate in our program 2 major things: interfaculty double degrees, because we think, especially with the future job market, we need to fit the degrees a bit more. There are people wanting to do business and law. Why don't we offer a double degree bachelor in business and law? Or, for example, culture and law, or you can imagine different combinations there, obviously. But this is a major thing that we wanted to focus on in the upcoming years. And also, what we did achieve in our first year in the councils was we always said we want to offer more free language courses for our community. I think it's very important as an international European university to also give the opportunity to students to have free language courses. In our first year, we tried to integrate something into the curriculum of SPE. It was called Business Dutch. It was a program for international students having a skills course where they can learn about business, but also learn the Dutch language to also fit into the job market later on in the Netherlands. It hasn't been yet launched, unfortunately. There were a lot of discussions about it with different stakeholders, but obviously that is one big thing that we were thinking of to do, and we tried to do it, and we're still trying to push for it. And this is just one of many things. What we also should discuss now after the Corona is when we think about student well-being, what about reflection weeks in the curriculum? UCM, for example, has a good system after each exam having a reflection week. We should discuss this topic also on other faculties. Is it useful? Is it feasible? Does it make sense for our students? And I think we at USM are very much proud of what we achieved so far, but there's much to do and much to modernize, and that's why we hope for your vote.
Okay, so to talk about modernization, you have mentioned in your plan for the coming year that you'd like to digitalize our education, but currently we've had a whole year of online classes behind us. What would you see changing about the digitalization of our curriculum?
Yes, that's correct. In our program, it says step-by-step adequate digitalization of Maastricht University. Well, yes, everything is online right now, but unfortunately, it won't be completely offline either. It's going to be a combination. The university will see, okay, some parts of online education did work. How can we make it feasible so it also doesn't harm our students? Well, what we think there is we need to improve feedback loops. So we really need to have more interaction between student and staff members. This is clear. Everybody knows that. Also, the other candidates wouldn't disagree on that, I think. The other thing is we need to promote global citizenship and social responsibility. But that doesn't have to do directly with digitalization, but it's something to do with modernizing the curriculum. It is very important for us to really go out of our degree with an open mind, an inclusive mind, and a diverse mind with great new initiatives and innovative ideas. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention is the faculties itself. Yes, we have online education right now, but what if we go back to the uni? All of us use laptops. For example, on some faculties, FASOS, law, or SPE, for example, you lack power plugs, a simple thing that can be introduced easily. The lack of that, and that's simple things we can do to also modernize the facilities.
I think you actually might be onto something there with the power plugs. It's a small detail, but it's kind of crucial, actually. There are a lot of themes here that you talk about: the digitalization, modernization of the curriculum, and if I understand you correctly, Lotte, these are also themes that run quite strongly within DOPE.
Yeah, that's correct. We think the digitalization of our education is really important, and like the university has told us for years that it wasn't possible to record all lectures. Well, after the Corona crisis, they really can't anymore. So I think we need to put the lessons we learned from the Corona crisis to our advantage. And I think in the future, lectures should always be recorded. And I think that's also a really important point for accessibility to the higher education.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a contentious point, I think, for a few faculties. It's simple, right? We just put a camera in front of the lecturer, and you would think that would happen. But you also talk about flexible studying, though. What is flexible studying? How could we understand this as a student looking for a party to vote for?
Yeah, so one of the points for this year that we really want to strive for is flex studying. And flex studying, well, normally as a student, you pay your tuition fee per year. But as I'm looking at myself, I've done board years, I have a chronic illness. So sometimes it's not possible to study full time. Some people are combining their studies with top sports, a job, caregiving, etc. So what we think is really important is that students get the choice whether they want to pay their tuition fee per year or per study point. So if they want to study part-time, they only have to pay like a limited tuition fee.
And how feasible do you think this really is to have a part-time studying at Maastricht, considering actually that we are in Corona times and our curriculum needs to reflect some sort of flexibility between the university and the students?
Yeah, what I think that really comes into play here is our connection with the National Student Union. So we know what happens on a national level of policy making. And right now there are some pilots with flex studying in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Utrecht and Amsterdam. And we really want to start some advocacy for such a pilot in Maastricht. So we can see how it works and students can really take that to their advantage.
Okay, and is this something that you plan on implementing in the next year?
Well, if possible, yes, of course. But I guess national legislation might be in our way. So we'll see about that, but we're going to do everything in our opportunities to make it happen.
Okay, cool, I look forward to that. But for somebody who perhaps has very different ideas on the curriculum, I'd like to turn towards Peter van Mil here. Peter, you actually are not always convinced that the curriculum is, the core content of the curriculum is actually sufficient for what students should take into the world beyond university.
Yes, that's a way of saying it. Basically, I think one thing, if I was the boss and I could dictate what every program in Maastricht University should have, it would be more critical thinking activities. So, well, basically, one of my key points is the university is a public institution. It has a public mission, and in accordance with that, I don't necessarily think that the university should just make students fit right snugly into the job market. Of course, it's important that students are prepared for the job market, but the university should also try its hardest to make students into independent thinkers. And I think in some, well, really across all programs, there could be more, well, for example, courses with a component of critically analyzing pieces of text, formulating your own opinion, giving arguments, etc. So I think that is somewhat lacking here and there, and I would support including more courses with a component of that sort.
So could you just give us a quick rundown of which faculty that you are in, and perhaps an example of what you're talking about when you say there's a lack of critical thinking skills and exercises?
Well, I'm at SBE, I study econometrics. And one thing I notice in my own study program is that, well, there is some measure of reflection. For example, sometimes the assumptions that we're making in our course are explicitly stated, and we also work on seeing where they break down. but often this is not something that the student has to discover or try to argue, but that is given to us, right? And well, in general, in my study, there's not a lot of critically analyzing arguments, at least in the courses that I've had so far.
Okay, thank you, Peter. It's interesting actually because Giulio Azzori, you say that you would like to see more real life cases actually in the curriculum.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that some courses that I took lack of the application of the knowledge that you get through the lectures and through the book. I think that in order to be steep on the learning curve, it is needed to have more practical cases to really apply the knowledge, the theoretical knowledge that you get.
And remind us again, what faculty are you in?
I'm from SPE.
But not the same course there as Peter, is that correct?
Yeah, that's a completely different course. I'm an economics student.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so could you give us an example within economics that you feel doesn't quite line up to your expectations?
And actually, I could give an example of one case that we analyzed and I like a lot. So it was about the fuel, about the gasoline sellers in the Netherlands and in Belgium, that there is this difference in price. But now I don't want to go into the technicalities, but that's this kind of activity. We did this just one time. We haven't done this even in other courses. And that's why I think that even the other courses should offer this kind of activity of taking the theoretical knowledge and applying it in everyday cases.
Okay, so you would like to see a bit more, real world cases, clear and relevant skills that are available to you to apply to the workforce. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah. So, but I think that, you and Peter might be very, very case specific on the curriculum, whereas Charles de Groot, Novum has a very expansive view on what you would like to do with the curriculum, right?
Yes, and if I may go directly to the point, Novum wants the curriculum to work more for students. And so, for example, we are against the software of Proctorio, which is being used in SVE, FHML, and DKE. We believe that test vision as it is already good enough. But not only that, the hardship clause, we believe, should also be amended. So let's say that you do have an exam and you do not feel good. Well, right now, a mental health issue is not enough to get an extension of exam. Whilst, for example, if your goldfish dies, you do get an extension of the exams. And so here we do see that we can actually implement this change through the councils. But not only that, Novum we're not really about slogans. We really think about our policies. And so, for example, we believe that in our view, we should have more lectures about sustainability, mandatory lectures about consent, and also about a diversity in the curriculum. And we believe that this should be done in the mentors program so that it does not fiddle with other courses, but that it is given by the university and that students do have access to this information. And one last point, I do have a question for Lotte, because they were talking about this flex studying, which is actually a very interesting proposal. But in our opinion, this flex studying means that the university will have much less revenue, and then it will also mean that the service men and women, the fixed costs of the faculties, so for example, cleaners will get paid less. So I want to ask Lotte, if it's possible, what they actually think about this.
Okay, so Lotte, do you have an answer for Charles?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the question. You kind of skipped for a bit, but I think I got the entire question. Otherwise, just interrupt me. So what the thing is about flex studying is that normally, well, let's say you pay 2,000 euros tuition fee. If you're introducing flex studying, then the cost per study point is a bit higher than it would be if you divided like the entire tuition fee through all the study points. So it will be a bit higher, but if you only take half study points, of course, you will be cheaper than when you would have paid like for the entire tuition fee, whereas you would only be studying part-time. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I mean, it is an interesting idea, but so it would not apply to all students because I think that most students would not want to pay higher tuition fees.
No, it's this, well, it's cheaper. So for example, last year I took a board year and I only studied for 30 study points. So that's only half of a normal year. And I had to pay my tuition fee for the entire year, which was somewhat over 2,000 euros. So if you would say like, okay, we reduce that to half if you're only studying half, well, yes, that might lead to extra budget cuts in the university, for example, because of higher service costs. But we would then say like, okay, if you want to study for half a year, you will pay like 1,000 euros tuition fee plus some extra service costs to make up for that. So you will still be cheaper off. But yeah, I hope that that makes it clear.
All right. Well, I mean, in my opinion, that is quite a bureaucratic measure that we would like to get through. It may be interesting, and Novum will definitely be interested in implementing this as well, if it's good. And if we can guarantee that the normal people, the working people in the faculties can also just get the same wage as they're getting before.
I completely agree with that. Thanks.
Cool, thank you, Charles. Actually, that was a nice point, a thoughtful point to bring up. But I'd like to move on to somebody who has perhaps slightly different views of the curriculum that actually hasn't been brought forward yet. Freddie, from the CAN Party, you are championing a future-proof curriculum. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we want a modern curriculum that prepares us for the challenges to come in the 21st century. The three main themes here are the climate crisis, diversity and inclusivity, and well-being.
And how do you plan on implementing this? Because obviously across many different faculties, we have many different courses. And so applying a sustainability lens might be different in, say, perhaps FASOS as it is at FHML.
Yes, that's definitely a challenge. However, I believe that there are a lot of staff members who are very interested in working on this, and it affects all studies. And so it needs to be integrated into the curricula to give the students the tools that they need to work towards a sustainable organization of society and the economy that is socially just.
Okay, so I think I've seen a hand raised from Charles, or did you lower it again?
No, I also have a question to Freddie, because as a progressive party, of course, we believe in the same thing, what you believe for sustainability. But my question is, why do you want to put it in all the curriculum and all the courses? Would it make not more sense to put it just in the mentors program so that everybody has access to this information and not have it in all the different courses?
I believe that then we would be giving incomplete education. We would be missing crucial parts on the topics that are anyway being talked about in courses. If we talk about property law, for example, there need to be the questions brought up, and that will be increased on things like what happens in responses to natural disasters, how is that being dealt with? That will become more important, and thus we will definitely need to include it into the topic to also ensure that everyone gets this information. This should not be something for the people who have a bit of extra motivation. This is essential knowledge that we need. And the same goes for diversity and inclusivity. Here we actually really want to pull on the soft skills. It's really important that we can all work in an international classroom and working environment. That means being tolerant, being respectful, and no space for racism and discrimination. So in, for example, the intro days, there should be a training that mandatory for all students that creates a space in tutorials that is helpful for also the environment.
Okay, Charles, before I let you respond to that, I'm just going to inform you that you have a chance, obviously, to give a response to Freddie. And then from there, you will take charge on our next topic, will be the introduction of student mental health and well-being. But before we move on to that, do you have perhaps a response to Freddie?
Well, I'd like to already thank her for her response. It is interesting. I mean, Novum would be more in favor of doing it the mentors program because that's where it would make more sense in our opinion. Not have it in all the different skills courses or any of the other courses, because at the end of the day, if you have a course about Dutch tax law, I don't believe that sustainability should be in that course itself, but maybe in the mentors program it should be. So let's go to the topic of student well-being. Before I start, I'd like to say that Novum in February wrote a letter, not only wrote a letter, but joined a meeting with the rector of to talk about how we can improve the student mental well-being. And so there were different ideas that were developed, and then Novum took the initiative to contact other student representation association to actually ask them what they believe should be included in a letter to be sent to the rector. And so that's what we did. We wrote a letter and we sent it out. And so there we talked about how we wanted to have a deadline extension, again, in the hardship clause. So this is a specific thing that is very technical, but would actually help many students who do not feel good and that do need to have more help, well, that they could get directly through a psychologist a extension of deadline. The second thing is that we drastically need to redo the website of Psychological Help. It is very bureaucratic. And I do believe that most students who have tried to get help just see all the time that you have to contact your local GP. But most students do not have a local GP. And so that's, again, a place where the SSC can step in and can also show where there may be a student, where the local GPs are in Maastricht. And then thirdly, we want to have a 24/7 student psychological call center for students to call anonymously if they do need help. And I think that's something that's also being done in Tilburg and in Cambridge. And so it is something that we can implement.
Okay, that's quite a ambitious program to have, a 24/7 mental health hotline. But I did see that Moritz from USM, you have raised your hand. You have a question for Charles.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's great that he mentions the support services. I think we all can agree that we're all supporting more investments into that. I wanted to ask him actually what he thinks about, because he was talking about the bureaucratic website and everything, and USM is acknowledging that as well. And I wanted to ask him what he thinks about introducing application forms that are targeted for learning disabilities, for example, that don't need a Dutch GP certificate, but rather a statement why I have these issues and more a broader view so that we can ease the access for students. Would you work together with USM on such a thing?
Well, that is definitely something that we would want to do, but I think that it's easier to answer that. Let's say that Novum gets elected to the different university councils. Well, if we manage to get this 24/7 student psychological call center, well, then normally students can call the call center directly, and so all the bureaucratic mess that you have to go through to get an appointment, all the emails that you have to send, well, those are away because you can call them directly. And so I do think that with the 24/7 student psychological call center, you do already mitigate that risk of having this bureaucracy.
Yeah, that is completely true. I completely agree with that. I'm just saying that this introduction of application forms is needed at some point because you need to write it down somewhere. It needs to be noted so that you get the help you really want to have. So it won't be solved with just a call.
I mean, to that, I'd like to respond. I do think that having a call would already be something important. And I mean, maybe if I can go into the what I believe should happen also in the student call center. Well, I believe that there should have, every time that you call, that you get a call back 1 week afterwards, so that the knows what's happening with the students and knows the progress of student well-being. And so that's how you could already mitigate it. But if Moritz, you want to work with Novum next year on creating this application, Novum will of course be there because we believe that student well-being is very important to improve.
Great. USM has already some templates, so we can discuss it after the elections. That's good to hear. Great.
Let's go for it.
Excellent. And before we move on to our next candidates, I see that Freddie, you have a question for Charles.
Yes, I do. I want to ask Charles, how exactly are you planning on doing that helpline? I've been working voluntarily at one since 2016, and I know the complexity of operating and working at such a helpline. I got over 70 hours of training, which cannot be reduced by, for example, having psychology students sit there. How is the mental health of the people working at the helpline supported? And is it going to be anonymous? Where are the people going to be working from? And for how long? 24/7? Who do you expect to work through the night?
Well, it happens in other universities, so that's why we also thought that it would be interesting. And we can look at different templates from the different universities and which one would apply best to our university. To the question about whether students can call anonymously, yes, I think that it's important that students may have the choice of calling anonymously, or for example, if they want to get that extension of deadline, that they can call directly with their student ID number at hand. So that's basically what Novum believes. And I do see that in this debate, this debate is interesting, and I do see that other parties are interested in this idea. So, I mean, we can always talk about it later in the once the elections are over. And I do believe that we can get this through. And I hope that the CAN party will be part of this initiative as well.
I'm happy to explore that potentially further. However, I think this needs very high quality work. So I'm personally in favor of having this because these helplines already exist. Have the support really shown through a different helpline, and what you just said as well, having the communication improved, because the resource pages for support of are an overwhelming mess that definitely need to be improved. And I have a couple of ideas there, and I'm looking forward to discuss them with Lisbeth and Mika from the student psychologists.
The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly highlighted the mental health issues that students have faced, being in isolation and being cut off from the rest of the student community. What in Maastricht it has highlighted is also the lackluster structure of our mental health care facilities which are available to students. So what would your approach be on the issue of mental health, and what measures would you implement?
Lotte, this seems actually is one of the key points that DOPE is bringing to the table, is that just doesn't seem to be providing enough for us. What is DOPE willing to do regarding student mental health and well-being?
Well, first of all, I want to stress that for us, student well-being really is a priority, not a detail. And I think sometimes the university seems to see student well-being as a detail. And I think the course of action we need to take consists of two paths. First of all, it's the prevention side. I think it's really important to reduce study pressure. I think especially in this year of the pandemic, we have all been working so hard, only looking at our laptop screen, sitting in our rooms. It's just not good for your mental health. And I think therefore the university should adopt a the university should be lenient and cooperative towards personal situations of students instead of acting distrustful. And next to preventing mental health problems, for example, I think it's really important that the university invests in extra student psychologists. For example, friends of mine, they had been waiting for so long until they could go to the psychologist at the university. And I think that's really wrong. I think that should be so easy to go to. I think there shouldn't be a threshold. So that's really what we want to do.
So in this sense, you're thinking more about preventative measures rather than tackling the problem once it has in fact become a problem. How do you see this impacting?
That's not what I'm saying.
Go on then, yeah.
We want to do both. We think it's really important to prevent the problem, but we also should tackle the problem. And we think student psychologists are a really important step in that direction. But also, for example, something that we really want to establish is better communication about the mental health problems the university offers. So there's this online platform that helps you with, for example, reducing stress. It's made by the university. And we think it's really important that all students know about those platforms.
So what then can DOPE do to increase the platforms, to increase the awareness of these services to the students of Maastricht?
Repeated communication. So I think, of course, using email and social media platforms. But I think it's also really important to notice students of the existence of these kind of things during their first year of study, for example. But maybe also like during the course of their studies.
Okay, thank you, Lotte. So there's a problem with the ease of access to the services that the university provides for us. I think that Hayden, this was actually a big problem for you as well, wasn't it?
Yes, when it comes to psychologists, I do believe that access is one of the main issues, access and knowledge of the information available. I myself am an international student. I didn't know going here about how to get in touch with a GP. I didn't. I looked on the UM's website. I wasn't really able to find that much helpful information. I believe we need to improve the website. I also believe one thing we need to do is we need to work on decreasing wait times to currently see at psychologists. That's a huge issue that currently has. I just went and checked before this debate. If I wanted to get like a 10-minute meeting to determine with a psychologist right now, I have to wait till Tuesday. If Tuesday the 11th doesn't work for me, then I'm going to have to wait till the 17th. That seems like it's unnecessarily long. I believe that can be addressed simply by funding this program more to allow them to have another staff member, to decrease wait times. And then what can serve as is essentially a mediator to assess what actually the student needs and then provide them guidance as to where they should seek out the source of help that they need. But I also want to say, when it comes to student well-being, I think student well-being is much more than just psychologists. We need to look at the roots as to why students actually are stressed. Some of it can be from study pressure, which is why one of the things I support is that we need to abolish the BSA program, or the Binding Study Advice program, for first-year students, because it causes unnecessary stress on students when they're already stressed in their first year. I also believe that needs to do more to decrease to allow for affordable housing, which undoubtedly causes stress in students' lives when it comes to them having issues with the landlords or issues with how they can find housing to live in. These ways that universities can help reduce stress ideally would help actually tackle the issue of mental health in general, hopefully leading to less of a need for psychological services for students. Obviously, they still need to be there, and when they are there, they need to be more accessible and more readily available than they are now.
Okay, and so perhaps, I see a raised hand from Charles. I was actually about to connect your view to Charles's vision of how Novum is going to try and tackle the student mental health problem at Maastricht. But Charles, you have a question for Hayden?
No, yeah, I wanted to just say that to any student who has a problem with housing, call the housing help desk. It is available, it is free. So if you do have a problem, call them and they will reply to you. And then to the question about our different visions. Yes, I do believe, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Hayden and Novum has the same vision that we want to cut the bureaucracy. And so again, I'm coming back to this 24/7 student psychological call center. This would cut the bureaucracy because you could just phone them, and then this would already directly be the help that can be given.
Hayden, you have a response for Charles?
Yes, actually, I don't believe we actually are aligned with the same vision. I believe that Novum's vision, at least as it's right now, is not actually thought out completely. They didn't honestly have a platform that they wanted to monitor it after, so saying that they need to look at what they actually want done. I believe what I want done is very concrete, and it's also very plausible to be able to happen as recently as next academic year, which is that we just invest more in the current existing UM psychology department to better staff it. I'm not saying that it will be able to be 24/7 because that is going to be a process that's going to take years to come. But I believe the step in the right direction is to better fund this so that we can have more access to quick referrals, and then UM can act, as what I said before, an intermediary to help direct students to find the help that they need.
Charles, do you have a response for Hayden in this regard?
Yeah, so you said that it takes years to come, but other universities do have it. And they managed to have it in 6 months when the pandemic already started. So why does the university not provide this call center? And at the end of the day, we may have different opinions, but it will be the voters who will elect us. And so if you believe that a 24/7 student psychological call center is a good measure, then vote for Novum and vote for change.
Hayden, before I move on to our next candidate, do you have any final words on this topic?
Yes, I believe that one of the things we need to look at when we elect a candidate is actually what practically can be done. I'm just going to finally say that if Novum gets seats on the University Council, I really doubt the likelihood of them being able to actually implement a 24/7 student help desk. I'm very confident in the ability for UM to increase funding to the existing UM psychologist department, and that's a very plausible step in the right direction. I see what Charles is advocating for is something that can be accomplished down the road, but I feel like we need to move in that direction first, as that will be better that will be met with less resistance than if you try to make a major change right away. And I believe at the end of the day, it's about getting things done for students and getting results that students can actually see. I believe what I'm proposing is much more likely to actually be able to get done.
Cool. Thank you, Hayden. Now I'm going to direct my questioning to Peter van Mil, one of our independents. Peter, you would like to see, as well as much as everybody else, more investiture in mental health support for students. But you also said that you would like to measure the actual impact of stresses on students.
Yes, I do think, basically many of the parties agree that things need to be done, right? But I do think one important part of that is also, maybe through surveys or through some other measure, actually measure the impact, measure the current situation, measure how much it improves. So I do think we need to not forget about it, because otherwise we're throwing money at the problem and hoping that it helps. That is not wise, right? I see Freddie has a response, but...
Yeah, Freddie, you have a question for Peter.
Yes, first of all, I definitely agree with the approach. We are getting additional money from the Dutch government through the national Programma Onderwijs, and I'm part of the team working on how we want to implement this money in the area of well-being. And I have actually proposed, and it's gotten very good responses, that we need research, because a lot is happening at UM but it's not reaching the students. So I think although we have a good bit of surveys coming into our inboxes on how are you doing, what is problematic for you right now, we need to see which solutions can actually help and are not just there but not reaching students.
Cool.
Yes,
Peter, would you have a response to Freddie?
I'd say I definitely agree. I think yeah, I also think yeah, I would agree with many of the parties that we've heard before. I think funding is an important aspect, just funding the current program better. I'm also not entirely convinced by Novum's plans. I do think, like Hayden says as well, it's perhaps better to go in smaller steps where you get the first step done in quicker time, rather than try to completely throw around the system. So I would, yeah, I would be on Hayden's side there. I also think that what also has been mentioned before, that the communication is a key part, because there are many things done both inside and outside the There are many projects that can help people who are having mental health problems, but indeed they are not reaching the students. So what I would say is, first of all, like send each half a year an email with a very clear list of a few things that you can that exist basically, and a clear explanation of what they are, and perhaps also just hang posters around the university, make flyers, but we need to get the word out. That I think is a key part.
Cool, thank you, Peter. And I'm going to move across to Julio right now. Julio, you have a more education-based approach that you would like to have more of a sustainable workload placed upon the students, is that correct?
Yeah, that's entirely correct. So before answering directly your question, I will open a brief parenthesis about the curriculum, because there are actually 2 points that I think is important to touch upon. So the first is the focus on career relevant skills. So I mean, for instance, for the case of the SPE students, Excel and presentation. I noticed that there are various occasions to give presentation, but maybe some more Excel activities will be needed because they are really career relevant. And in the end, Maastricht University, a lot of the students of Maastricht University are here for a career rather than continuing then with a PhD. And I would also say that it is important from the curriculum standpoint to ensure that the contents relevant for the exam are clearly specified in the syllabuses. So a clear distinction between primary and secondary important topics, so that students can really understand where to focus more in order to be steep on the learning curve. Then, talking about the mental health, I do agree a lot with what Lot from Dope said. I think that the main point is to make prevention. And I have a specific, a clear idea on how to prevent mental health issues. And yeah, at the end, if Lot wants to give me a feedback, she can feel free to give it. So I think that beforehand, before starting the bachelor, before starting the master, students, the university should be sure that students understand what is expected from them. The university should be sure that the students know that, okay, in order to achieve this result, I have to do this, this, and this. I have to invest these hours, this amount of hours. And naturally, even the coordinators should ensure that the workload is actually sustainable. Then, it's important the prevention, but surely it's also very important to have a prompt response from psychologists in the case that the prevention has not been enough.
Okay, Moritz from USM, would you have a response to Giulio, as well as some ideas on what USM might bring to the table?
Yes, sure, but I think out of fairness, I would prefer if Lotte can answer first, because I think she raised her hand in the chat, if that's okay for you.
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't, from the studio, I couldn't see that. Lotte, please respond to Giulio.
Thanks, Moritz. Well, yes, as a response to Giulio, I think preventing mental health problems, I think being clear about what is expected of students is not the only part, because we all know that doing a study would be full-time, but still it's hard. We all know that we're supposed to do exams, but it's still hard. And then especially when a corona crisis starts and the university starts using proctoring, for example, and you as a student, you are just stressed out because you have to have your webcam on during an exam. You have to have your mobile phone next to you with also a camera pointed at you, and you're just stressing out because you think, what if my phone loses its internet connection and my exam isn't approved, for example? You have to do everything over. And I think there are so many aspects of mental health that are really hard for students, and being clear about what time investments students should make, I don't think that's all of it. I think the university should be lenient with personal situations. They should be lenient with for example, exam styles. So, well, yes, according to DOPE, we must prevent mental health issues, but we must prevent it by stopping the use of proctoring and reducing the study pressure.
Giulio, you have a response for Lotte.
Yeah, I completely agree with Lotte. I completely agree that there are really a lot, I think hundreds of sources of stress for the students. And another good example is, of course, the proctoring system. Me personally, I did all the exams on campus exactly because, yeah, I couldn't, yeah, it wouldn't be good for me to have a camera in front of me while I'm doing an exam. And so, yeah, again, the most important thing to do with mental health issues is to prevent them and so we should have psychologists that not only focus on fixing mental health issues, but they use their resources even to prevent, to individuate the sources of mental health issues, and once they are individuated, to avoid them.
Okay, Lotte, I would like a short response from you because I see that we are slowly running out of time this evening and we still have 2 more candidates to cover. A quick response to Giulio.
My only response is that I think that not only the student psychologists should work on preventing mental health, but also the university should take an attitude of prevention. I think that's really important to stress for DOPE.
Thank you, Lotte. To Moritz, let's get a little bit from UCM and what you think of the student mental health issues that face the body in Maastricht.
Yeah, thank you for remembering that it was my turn. So I want to thank all the parties beforehand with all their great ideas, and I think it's valuable to also talk in the councils later on about these ideas. We can only solve student well-being and mental health and improve it if we work together. And for USM, it's a crucial thing. Student well-being has different layers. It is a very individual thing. That's why I was very hurt before when I only heard slogans from one of the debate candidates and not real improvements. So yeah, USM stands for multiple layer approach. So for example, what is actually the issue why you face mental health? It could be mental health support. So we're going right into the topic from before. We need to advocate for more investment into support services. This includes your psychologists, this includes study advisors, this includes help desks. But more than that, we also need to focus on work-life balance. Right now in Corona times, this is a big issue. We should think about Canvas notifications, emails. They should only be during specific work hours and not the whole day, in the middle of the night, on the weekends, just before an exam. That is something that stresses people out. Next to the awareness and easing the access to support services, I want to emphasize on other issues that also very much in the Corona crisis were issues that students face regarding well-being. One of them is we need to ensure a safe opening of UM facilities. The other thing is study financing and housing. So I heard from a lot of students at Maastricht University losing their job. Suddenly they don't meet the requirements of the Dutch educational system anymore. And then they struggle. They are thinking, how can I pay my next rent? The immense stress and decrease in well-being, that's something we need to pragmatically and practically solve. And that's why we also had the 56-hour campaign that I mentioned at the beginning of this debate, but also in housing. I hear many people saying, okay, I can't find housing at all, or I can't even find something affordable. So we need to create, and that's what USM is currently doing. We are creating, and we are in the pre-launch phase, that's why it's not official yet. We are currently creating a platform where we try for a student-led platform for UM students and historic Hochschule students to basically have a point where they can avoid Facebook scammers, for example. I heard issues from friends of mine, terrible things about landlords and Facebook scams. And this is also something that increases your stress level. So yes, we need to invest into UM psychologists. Yes, we need to invest in the help desk. But yes, we need to tackle the issues at hand as well. And that's what USM is standing for. And that's why I hope that students will see that we're actually trying to do something here. And we are happy to work with the other parties together on this issue. So both USM to improve student well-being.
Cool. Thank you, Moritz. And I think there are a few sort of similarities between the vision that USM has and our last candidate for the evening, Freddie from Cannes. Freddie, you say that the current student health, mental health plan is not actually tailored towards students?
I'm saying it's not reaching students. It's not addressing their needs effectively. Because otherwise we wouldn't have these large-scale problems. We wouldn't have the complaints, the problems we have been hearing a lot in this debate. So that's what I want to change and what I'm looking forward to changing. One step in that direction is something also already being thought about and worked on in the context of the additional money I mentioned earlier, and that is faculty offices for well-being, so that we have an additional point on reaching students here. But another topic I really want to bring up again is housing, as well as student finance, because I think this can significantly reduce worries, anxiety, and stress. And that's also why we're so happy to be collaborating with USM on the 56-hour campaign. And for housing, I must say that unfortunately there are a little bit decreased opportunities for UM to act legally, but that's where the intersection with the municipality comes in, and where we are so happy to work together with the Maastricht Student Union, who have a lot of experience in this field.
Great, thank you, Freddie. I see that Moritz has raised his hand in response to something you have said.
Yes, it was nothing that I have against what Freddie said. I just wanted to raise my hand to actually say, yeah, I'm sorry that I forgot to mention before. Khan is a valuable partner in the 56-hour rule project, and just together we could improve stuff. And that's why I always emphasize this: we rebuild community together, because it's so important that we work together, not against each other, because at the end of the day, we want to serve the students and get the best out of it. So thank you, Freddie and the Khan Party, for helping so much in this campaign and being equal partners in such projects.
Cool, thank you, Moritz. And before we finish, I see Hayden, you raised your hand.
Yes, I actually want to address one of the things that the Khan Party representative talked about, which was the action that can do with regards to housing. It actually is not it's not 100% accurate to say that there's a very limited amount that can actually do. That is not true. is often consulted when it comes to different programs that the municipality offers. One program such as like the match program that currently exists. Another program is when it comes to expanding the guest house. That is always done in consultation with the municipality. So there's ways that we can draw strong relationships with the municipality, and UM should be encouraged to do that more. And also, I think when it comes to what I said earlier, it's not just about building new houses. It's also about ensuring that student tenants know their rights, because that is why student tenants are one of the most abused groups of renters in the Netherlands, is because it comes down to landlords know that a lot of them are international students. A lot of them don't know a thing about Dutch housing law or Dutch rental law, and they take advantage of them. And UM needs to do a lot more spreading awareness for this issue and making sure that students know actually their rights as housing tenants.
I fully agree. And although consultation is not the same thing as being able to build yourself, however, UM must do more, and that's also why we are working on this. UM must lobby for housing that fits the growth of UM, and we just need more housing in the city. I think we all agree on this. And for scams, I fully agree, more needs to be done. And if you are in a difficult situation, Charles mentioned it, actually it's not the housing help desk anymore, but the HER team's out. So please contact them. I highly recommend it. They can be very helpful, especially also on these legal aspects.
So cool. Thank you very much, Freddie. And so this has brought about a conclusion to our evening. We are unfortunately running out of time, and so we will not be able to conduct a Q&A session. However, if you do have any questions for the candidates or their parties, please reach out, contact them. You will find their contact details via social media, via the UM website, and via the various websites of the parties or the independents themselves. As a final closing round, our candidates have been given 60 seconds free speech with no questions or rebuttals. And so to kick things off, I will ask Hayden Bunn to give us 60 seconds on why we should vote for you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to talk about something that I haven't actually discussed in this election, which is why am I running in general? To be fair, no candidate has actually said that. I am running because 2.5 years ago, I left my home in Minnesota in the United States and came to a place I did not know anything about. But this community has given back so much. We've all talked about the flaws that Maastricht has, but let's be honest, Maastricht University is not a bad university. It's a university that needs to be improved. And this community has given a lot to me, which is why throughout my time here, I have given back to it in every way that I can. I was on the Law Faculty Council. I currently serve as the chairman of the Maastricht Student Union. And that is why I'm running for University Council, because I have liked my time in Maastricht University. I want to ensure that every single student enjoys the time here at Maastricht University, and that every single student knows that they're valued here at Maastricht University. So the final thing I'm going to say is, I believe that change can come to Maastricht University, but it's not going to come through doing the same thing that we've done before with the same parties that continue to make the same promises over and over again. If you want to learn more about my campaign, please visit haydenbunn.com. On there you can find my contact information. If you have any questions, you can also view my platform and more information about myself and why I'm running. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for watching the debate, and thank you UNSA for doing such a great job of making this debate work.
Cool. Thank you very much, Hayden. And now I'll move to Moritz from USM.
Yeah, thank you all for joining in. I hope it was an informative session, and USM is really much in this election to represent you, your interests, and tackle the issues close to your heart. I think the corona pandemic has shown us again and emphasized and enhanced the issues that we face. Yes, we are at a great university, but yes, we also need to show the issues that are around and need to face them and need to solve them. And the United Students of Maastricht, therefore, hope to rebuild the community together with the other student representatives, but also with you as a community through our platform outside the councils, with all our great projects that are listed today, but also have collaboration in the council work, talk to the UM staff, and try to find practical solutions for your problems. And that's why vote the United Students of Maastricht, not just me, but all the candidates behind me. It's not a one-person show. It's many people that need to be thanked, and also people that will try to represent you as good as they can, passionately. So please vote USM to rebuild a community that is sustainable, inclusive, diverse, future-driven, innovative, and let's do it together. Our candidates are up for it. Vote USM.
Cool. Thank you, Moritz. Giulio Azzori, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. So, electors, mine is a very young party, which is running the election for the very first time. The lifeblood of my party is the desire to make a change, which is both attainable and achievable. An ambitious desire, which in order to become reality, not only needs your vote, but also need a focus on the long run. And this is because only in the long run, a new library can be built in order to increase the number of study places available and the opportunities to socialize. And only in the long run, another guest house can be built in order to really decrease the monthly rents for the rooms. Of course, there are also some issues which can be solved in the short run. In particular, my party will strive to improve the communication between students and coordinators by setting higher standards for the syllabuses and by increasing the number of contact opportunities. So my advice in these elections is to opt for a real change. Make your voice heard. Vote skyscrapers in Maastricht.
Excellent. Thank you, Giulio. So Lotte Meerhoff from DOPE, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for this opportunity. It's really cool. So for 4 years, I have been a student at Maastricht University, and I have struggled with finding housing. I have felt study pressure. I've worried about climate change, and most stressing, I have built up an enormous study debt, which of course affects my mental health. And therefore, I want to take an active role in tackling these problems. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for the University Council. And DOPE wants to tackle these problems. And therefore, I want you to remember 3 things. I want you to remember why to vote DOPE. So first of all, you should vote DOPE for excellent quality of education, for on-campus education as soon as possible, together with always recorded lectures. You should vote DOPE for a university that is part of the solution to tackle climate change, instead of part of the problem. And you should vote for DOPE because student well-being is a priority and not a detail. So I've seen people asking what DOPE has already achieved. And last year we have achieved more study places. We have achieved the Canvas app. We have achieved an extra student psychologist, less proctoring, more sustainable and cheaper catering. And this is what we want to continue. So my name is Lotte. I'm number 1 on the list of DOPE for the University Council, and I really hope we can count on your vote, which would be a vote for a better UM tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you, Lotte. Peter, our last independent of the evening, this is your chance to convince voters why they should vote for you.
Thank you. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, I am mostly focused on technology issues. Vote for me if you want to have one person who has a bit of technological expertise in the council. I think that could be handy. Aside from that, I will always, that's my one campaign promise, I will always use my own mind, be critical, but also ask too, and try to have an open mind in the discussions. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Great, excellent, thank you, Peter. I'm now going to turn to Charles de Groot of the Progressive Party, Novum. Charles?
Thank you. Progressive Dutch and international students are uniting around Novum. The Volt student party of Maastricht has also endorsed Novum because we have ideas. This election is about substance. So if you want to get a 24/7 student psychological call center, vote for Novum. If you want to get free period products, vote for Novum. If you want to get rid of proctorial in the other faculties, vote for Novum. And if you want to get recent weeks in all the faculties, vote for Novum. Lastly, we want to develop affordable housing in the Randweg area. And so you see that these are progressive ideas, substance, but I will end with a slogan. Don't hope for change, vote for it. Vote Novum.
Excellent. Thank you, Charles. And our last candidate of the evening, Freddie Leppert from Cannes.
Thank you very much for hosting this debate. What we stand for and what we want are evidence-based actions. We want to bring the faculty action plans and working groups on sustainability to all faculties. We want to see faculty officers for well-being implemented well, and we want a long-term central strategy. Furthermore, decolonization of the curricula has not been talked about enough this evening, but it is important that we move away from a solely Eurocentric perspective. If you want to get involved with us, bring your own project and your own ideas, always come and join us, send us a text on our social media, and support us in our plans of improving this university and of making our education future-proof. With your support, you are voting for collaboration because we get things done together.
Excellent. Thank you, Freddie. And so, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. 7 of the 8 candidates on the University Council elections. Do not forget, elections take place from 17th to 20th May. You can find all the information on the university website. If you have any questions, please direct them to the candidates via social media or via, again, the university website. My name is Michael Keith. I'm with the Maastricht Diplomat. Have a good night.